Hello, ranchers, dippers, and dunkers alike. Welcome back to Spill the Ranch. I am your host, Noelle Cheney, aka Noelle Loves Ranch, Noelle Loves Sloths, whatever you want to call me. We're back. Happy Wednesday. I hope you've been having a saucy week. I hope your weekend last weekend was very spicy and saucy and just for the most part enjoyable. We have a very juicy episode today. I am so excited. We're going to be talking about all things relationships. As a seasoned 27-year-old, I feel I have some experiences that I may be able to use as caution for the younger generation as they head into the dating world. I'm very excited to share some of my experiences as well as experiences of listeners. We have some nasty breakups to talk about. We have, different questions and advice to talk about. So I'm very excited for today's episode. I hope that the last 7 days of your life since we saw each other last were fabulous. I am so excited to be back in front of you all, talking with you all, enjoying a very saucy Wednesday. The last Wednesday of July, in fact. I have a very depressing news to tell you. This is my last Wednesday on summer break. I go back to work next Wednesday. So I go back Wednesday, August 7th. And then the first day of school is the following week. So I only have 1 week left of summer, which I'm actually going to start crying. I'm a little emotional about it. I always get really emotional at the end of the summer. I love summer and I get really, really sad when it ends. So not to say that I'm not excited for the school year, but it's just the end of something nice and fun. And it's if you're a teacher, you kind of know, going back to school it's intense and it can be nerve-wracking, and there's just a lot that goes on with, waving goodbye to the summer, if you will. If you're feeling like the sound today is a little bit crisper, a little bit better, your ears are not deceiving you. I have a new microphone, and honestly, the fact that this microphone is it was way cheaper than the other microphone I was using, but I got it in it. I think it sounds way better. And so I'm really excited for this episode because I think the sound quality is going to just be so much higher. I'm kind of testing out a new way of recording. So I hope you guys are enjoying the enhanced audio for this episode. Speaking of audio, if you are listening/watching this episode on Spotify today, would you please just, as you're listening, you don't even have to click out of the podcast. Please do not click out of the podcast to do this. However, I think if you're on Spotify, you can just head over to the Spill the Ranch page and just give us a quick little 5-star review. No big thing. Just give us 5 stars for being fabulous, wonderful, amazing. If you're able to give us a review, it just really, really me a review, I would just really appreciate it. And it just kind of allows me to continue making this podcast better and showing the people of Spotify that I am worthy of listening to. So if you could, that'd be amazing. Thank you so much. And while you're at it, while we're talking about things of this sort, how about you head over, don't click out of the podcast, keep listening, but head over to Instagram and give the Spill the Ranch Instagram page a follow. Why not, right? If you don't want to miss out on all things podcast related, I would highly recommend following the Spill the Ranch podcast on Instagram. If I'm ever looking for questions or stories, I normally post on my story there, and I post clips and I post other things. So definitely don't miss out on anything related to the podcast. So follow that Instagram. While you're on Instagram, you might as well go follow my Noelle Loves Sloths page. It is my public, personal page. So you won't miss out on anything from my life if you're following both of those pages. So I think we have all of our bases covered here. Let's get into the episode. I first want to talk about my saucy weekend. It's always saucy. A weekend in my life, I can go into the weekend thinking I have no plans, and then by the end of the weekend, I'm like so tired because I ended up being so busy. It's crazy. I'm not saying I live a double life, but I will say I do typically have stuff going on the weekend. There's just always something that pops up, especially when you are in a partnership, when you're engaged to a man who's very much a social butterfly and has a lot of friends, and those friends like to do things often, and then you just always end up being busy. I ended up going to a lot of sporting events this weekend. So I'm going to tell you all about that. I was really excited about going to the Royals game. I mentioned it last episode. I was actually invited to a Royals game last Wednesday night, so I haven't had a chance to debrief about it. I love getting invited to Royals games. I feel so grateful for it, and I love going to Royals games. As I've kind of talked about before, Zach and I, ever since we've been dating, we have been very loyal Royals fans. And if you know anything about the Kansas City Royals, you know that we won the World Series back in 2015, which happened to be my freshman year of college. So I was actually in Kansas for it. But kind of since then, in the past 7 or 8 years, the Royals have fallen on some hard times, to say the least. And Zach actually grew up in St. Louis, and he's a huge Cardinals fan, but he's been in Kansas City, the same amount of time as I have, if not a couple years longer. And he is a Royals fan. And we both have been Royals fans through thick and thin. We go to the games, even during the years where they were really bad. And so it kind of feels just like such a treat that this year they have been so fun to watch. Every game I've gone to this year, they have won, which has been really fun. And they've just been so much fun to watch. And so I think it's very important when you are a fan of a team, don't give up on them ever, because one day, they will prevail and they will come back and they will be fun to watch. And it feels that much better when you're a fan who has waited so long for something. Like for a lot of Chiefs fans, prior to 2017, the Chiefs were bad for a long time. Or so I'm pretty sure. I mean, they never won any Super Bowls or anything like that. And right? Or had they won one? Let me know. Have they won 3 Super Bowls total or 4 total? I can't remember if they've won one back in the day or if they went to the Super Bowl back in the day but lost. Another thing about the Chiefs, which I am a huge Chiefs fan. I grew up a Packer fan, but then I'm obviously still a Packer fan through and through. But since living in Kansas City, I love the Chiefs so much. I feel so lucky that I get to be a part of a fandom for 2 incredible, amazing, wonderful, okay, actually 3 if we're counting the Royals, incredible, awesome, wonderful, amazing organizations. I just love being a fan of these teams. I know I'm getting off topic, but let me just finish my thought here with the Chiefs. I'm sure all of those Chiefs fans who were fans for so long and through the hard times, and now we're in kind of this quote unquote, we're kind of creating this dynasty here. Hopefully we can continue to do that. And I'm sure if you were a fan through those hard times, you're probably just enjoying the ride right now. And I love it for those fans. Back to the Royals game. So I was invited to this Royals game last Wednesday, and it was for Gals Night Out at the K. Kauffman Stadium is where the Royals play, and it's nicknamed the K. So I was able to have a +1, so I brought one of my girlfriends because I thought about bringing Zach, but I was like, wait, this is like a girls' night. I can't bring a boy. No boys allowed. So I brought my friend Molly, and we had such a fabulous time. They had this amazing activity for us, and it was build your own trucker hat. In my head, when they sent that to me in the email beforehand, I was like, oh, are we going to be coloring on a trucker hat? And I'm not artistic at all. This is going to look terrible. We get there, And it's these two, I think they're sisters, and they own this company called Mo Truckers Co. And they kind of travel around to parties, bachelorettes, events, things of the sort. They have all of these different colored trucker hats to choose from. And then they have hundreds and hundreds of different patches to choose from. And then you kind of you get all the patches you want, you put them to organize them how you want them on the hat, and then they press the patches on the hat for you. And so that was a really fun little activity to do. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen I posted the picture with my hat. If I do say so myself, my hat was literally amazing, looks so cute, can't wait to wear it again. So that was really, really fun. We got to design our own trucker hats. There was a lot of like Kansas City influencers at this, and it was just like a really fun time, kind of meeting some new people and just enjoying the baseball game, of course. And it's actually kind of funny because Zach ended up going to the game because my friend Molly, her boyfriend, is best friends with Zach. And so they ended up going to the game. Like, we all drove together because their guy friend invited them because he had tickets or something. So it was kind of funny. They ended up going to the game. And so, yeah, that was last week with the Royals game. I'm sorry I went off on like a really long tangent about that. Also last weekend, I went to a Sporting KC game. And if you're not familiar, Sporting KC is our professional soccer team, our MLS soccer team here in Kansas City. And they have a beautiful stadium. And so we kind of went on a quadruple date with some of our other couple friends. And that was really fun. Sporting actually won, which was really fun to see. And another thing that I did this weekend, which I don't do very often, but I was with my fiance and a bunch of his friends. We were watching the UFC Ultimate Fighting Championships. We were watching the UFC fights, and like those are actually low key like really fun to watch. It can get bloody, so I will say like it can definitely get bloody because it's literally just like two dudes like beating each other up. But it's kind of like so intense, really fun to watch. The craziest thing I think about it though, we were like live streaming it, and somebody tell me like why they do this. So we were live streaming it. It was like 10 o'clock our time, 11 o'clock our time by the end of these fights. So it must have started around like 8 o'clock our time or something. We're on Central Time in the US. And these fights took place like in England somewhere. And we were like, wait, so that means it's like 6 o'clock in the morning there? Like, were these people just up all night for this? So can somebody tell me why they do that, like in the middle of the night? Is it so that people in America can watch at a normal time? To me, that doesn't really compute, but like, let me know. So that's another thing we watched. Literally such an intense sport. I can't even imagine these guys, how much pain they are in. I mean, they probably can only do a couple fights. Like, they could probably only do a fight like every other month or something because they get so injured. They need stitches. They break their nose. They probably pull muscles. It's like they break bones. Like, it's very intense, very, very violent, but is actually kind of fun to watch if you like that sort of thing. So that's all the sportiness that I did this weekend. It was quite a fun weekend, very sporty, but I think it's time to move on to the main point of our episode, which is relationships. So I have to say, I have to give this disclaimer before we really dive in. I have only really ever been in one serious relationship, but I put a vote on Instagram, and this is what people wanted me to talk about. Zach has been the only like real relationship I've ever been in. I've, had many different situationships throughout high school and college. I had one boyfriend in high school. So I still have like lived experiences to talk about. And of course we have some different stories that have been sent in by listeners that we'll talk about. But I just want you guys to know that like, I'm not like somebody who has been in multiple relationships, but I still think I can help some people out here. So I just wanted to give that little disclaimer, just so you know, like Zach is kind of it. But I definitely have been through enough unhealthy relationships, I think, to kind of guide you in a direction toward a healthy relationship, and like some things to look out for so that you can avoid an unhealthy relationship, because those are never fun. And I think something that a lot of people maybe don't want to hear, but sometimes it's just kind of reality. Sometimes you just have to go through these things. Sometimes you just have to learn for yourself, because a lot of times when you are in an unhealthy relationship, nobody's going to be able to tell you anything. Like, you are not going to listen to anybody. You're going to do whatever you want. And you kind of just have to learn on your own sometimes. But I'm going to try to guide you in the right direction. So, a little bit about my dating history. It all started in high school. I had a boyfriend for a few months in high school. I think I had one or two like situationships. That's not what they were called back then. We called them things. I had a thing with someone. I had a couple situationships in college, and a couple in my adult life, and then Zach and I happened. So that's just kind of where I'm at. And then another thing I want to say, and I'm not trying to discredit anybody, but I think once you get to be in your mid-20s, you'll agree with me. So you might not agree with me now, but before relationships before the age of like 22, I feel like don't count. Like, they count if you are someone who like married your high school sweetheart, obviously like you were together long before you were 22. And I'm not saying those don't count, but I don't think you can have a true like real relationship until you're both like your frontal cortex or whatever it's called, whatever that's called, until you're like fully developed in your brain. And so, or at least close to it. So, I just want to say that, like, if you are having a really terrible experience in a relationship and you're like 16, I promise you it gets better. Because if you're a girl and you like boys take a long time to mature, okay? And they'll get there, but it takes them a long time. So just remind yourself, give yourself some grace. Like, just know that so many good things are coming for you if you feel like you're in this just like cycle of bad relationship after bad relationship. I promise you the right one's going to come along, and you've learned so many things from each relationship, and like you're going to be okay. I promise you, like, it's going to happen for you. So just with saying that, let's dive into my background of my relationship and the relationship that I saw with my parents. I first want to talk about how just important it is to learn about yourself before you are in a relationship with someone. Like, so, and if you are someone who wants to marry your high school sweetheart, that's very, very common. Like in Kansas, what I've noticed is, especially because there's a lot of small towns in Kansas, it's a very common thing in the culture here to get married really young, whether you're marrying your high school sweetheart or someone you met in college, but just either way, to get married really young, to have kids before you're 25. Like, that's very much the culture here, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I think it just kind of depends on how you grew up. Like, I grew up seeing couples not, oh my gosh, rude. I keep forgetting to turn my phone ringer off. Okay. I grew up seeing couples, not get married until I thought it was a very normal thing to not get married until you were like 30. And there's nothing wrong with getting married young. There's nothing wrong with getting married old. Everybody is different. Everybody's timeline is different. I've just noticed that here in Kansas, like, a lot of people tend to get married younger. And I also think it's really important to get to know yourself. So if you do happen to be single, you really learn a lot about yourself when you're single. You learn a lot about yourself when you are in a relationship as well, but I think it's so important to learn how to be independent, learn how to be on your own when you are single, because you will just be that much better of a partner when you do finally find the one. And so I didn't want to gloss over that. I think being independent is really, really important. And that's why I do feel like, would it have been nice to like have a boyfriend in college? Like, yeah, sure, of course. But like me being single until I was 24 really did like help me become this very independent person, and I could rely on myself, and I just learned so much about myself, in that early adulthood phase of my life. But I also grew up seeing parents who I had older parents. So my parents, they didn't meet until they were in their late 20s. My mom was 30 when they got married. She was 39 when she had me. She would kill me if I told anybody this. But I think like enough time has passed. And anyway, almost 40 years later, they're still, happily married. And I'm sure their relationship was not perfect, but what I grew up with seeing was an amazing example of two people who met a little bit later in life. Not that late. I mean, they were in their 20s. But they waited to have kids. They waited to get married. They didn't really wait to get married. But they waited to have kids. They enjoyed their 30s before having kids. They enjoyed 5 years of their 30s before having children. And they got to really enjoy life, get set in their careers. My mom especially. And like they had this such equal partnership is what I've noticed as I've gotten older. When I look back, I'm like, they had such an equal marriage. So I actually saw kind of what you would think to be opposite of like the typical gender roles in terms of a couple. So my mom was the one who worked the corporate job, worked downtown, went to work every day. My dad, of course, worked as well. He's been in sales forever, but he worked from home. And so my dad actually assumed a lot of the typical female responsibilities, keeping the home up and picking us up from school, cooking dinner a lot of the time. My mom cooked too, but like usually during the week, my dad would cook because he was home. And he would make sure the house is cleaned up during the day, all that stuff. But like, and I'm not saying that my mom didn't help with any of these. I mean, they both cooked, they both cleaned, they both went to our sporting events. It was just such a positive and equal relationship that I grew up seeing. And so I just grew up kind of always assuming like, oh, okay, like the woman is supposed to have like the big job. Like I just assumed. And like I never would thought like I don't know, stay-at-home mom was such a weird concept for me because my mom was never a stay-at-home mom. So that's just kind of what I grew up seeing, and I think it was such a positive relationship for me to witness as a child. And I know I'm so fortunate that I was able to witness that kind of relationship between my parents. And I know not everybody grows up with that experience. And so I know, the privilege that I have because of it, and how fortunate I am to have, that example for me as a relationship example. And honestly, with Zach too, Zach's parents both worked. They had a very equal partnership as well, still do. And so he kind of grew up in the same way, like seeing both of his parents working. And so we both kind of have that experience of an equal partnership between two people. And so that's kind of the template, if you will, that I grew up with. So let's talk about my first relationship, the first time I was ever broken up with, and how that affected me. So my first boyfriend, we met through a mutual friend, and he actually didn't go to my school. He was a year younger than me. I was a junior. He was a sophomore, went to a neighboring school. And it was a good first relationship. I don't have really many, like, negative things to say about it now. Maybe back then I could have said some negative things about it, but now looking back, I'm like, oh, that was like pretty harmless. If anything, I was like probably kind of toxic because I didn't know how to be a girlfriend. I didn't know how to be part of a relationship. Maybe I like wasn't mature enough for it. Maybe I wasn't ready for it, but I think I probably got a little jealous. I started like, I would like, start fights sometimes. And so I probably wasn't like the best person to date. But I'm not saying like I'm a horrible person. Oh my gosh. I'm so cute and so sweet and fun. But yeah, I'm just saying I'll take some blame for, you know, if the relationship wasn't perfect, I'll take some blame. Why not? But how it ended was kind of crazy. And I've talked about this on my TikTok before, but so prom, we went to prom. I was so excited. Like it was my junior prom, my first time ever going to prom. I had the beautiful dress. I thought I looked fabulous. And we went to prom. We had a good time. And then the next day, he like called me and broke up with me. And I was like, jaw on the floor. Excuse me, you're breaking up with me over the phone? I was seeing red, for real. I was so sad, so mad. I remember it was like, I couldn't get a hold of him like all day. And so I was like nervous. I was like, what's going on? Why won't he like talk to me? And then he like called me and he was like crying and he broke up with me. And I was like, oh my God, my first breakup. So I remember going home and just like crying to my mom. But I think within a few days I was fine. And like just bold move to break up with your girlfriend the day after prom. But like, I guess in hindsight, looking back, I'm so glad he waited until after prom, you know? But then like, I couldn't post really any photos of the two of us together, which was like kind of lame. I was like, I want to post all these prom pictures. But anyways, so that was my first breakup, my first heartbreak. You know, obviously I was sad for a couple days. Like, yeah, I cried. But like I got over it and it was fine. And then, so yeah, that's my first breakup. I want to move on to, speaking of breakups, let's talk about some breakup stories. I have 3 stories that were sent in by listeners. So let's get into the stories. Okay, here is the first story. I will start with this. He said we were never together, even though he asked me, but whatever. So basically, this new kid at my school was really cute. So I went and talked to him and I asked for his number. Maybe like a week or so later, the kid told my best friend that he thought I was cute. So I was really happy and he asked me to be his girlfriend really quickly. And mind you, this is the beginning of 7th grade. 7th grade. Should I even keep reading? We all know middle school relationships. I'm not even going to say anything. I'm going to keep reading. Let's get to the end. So I didn't want to date yet because my mom had a rule. And so I said, I'm sorry, but no, I won't date you. He was really mad, blocked me, and the next day asked another girl. So he was for sure a player and he wasn't nice the rest of the year. At one point, he was really rude and got suspended and blamed me. So yeah, that's my story. Okay. So the reason I paused at 7th grade is because I said this earlier, high school, middle school relationships, they are so weird. And a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, they don't last. So don't get caught up on this. Your mom definitely knows what she's doing by telling you not to date, because in middle school, you don't really need to date. I mean, what is dating in middle school? You lock eyes one time, have a handshake, and then like maybe hug. I mean, I'm sure some kids kiss and such, maybe more. But like when I was in middle school, a relationship just kind of meant you just sort of like held hands for like a week and then you broke up. So don't worry about it. This kid sounds like a jerk, and his feelings were hurt and that's why he blocked you. His feelings were hurt. That's why he was rude and blamed you. So like anytime a guy's feelings are hurt and they feel like their feelings are hurt, I just wanted to say it like that. Anytime they feel that way, they're gonna be mean to you, and just don't take it personally, because they're dumb. Boys are dumb when they are young. So are girls. We all are. Everybody's dumb when you're young. You don't know when you're that young. Like, you don't know how relationships work. Like, it's not a bad thing. And just have fun with your friends. Enjoy your middle school years and your high school years with your friends, because those are the ones that are going to last a lifetime. Let's move on to story number 2. When I was a sophomore in high school, I was dating this guy who was a senior in another school who I met on Tinder. We had a great relationship for 3 months, and then all of a sudden he broke up with me, and I had no idea why until later on after we broke up. A girl reached out to me with evidence of him kissing her when we were together. So turns out he was cheating on me the whole time. It's weird how I kind of have like a weird, like, similar story. Maybe I'll share that another day. Yeah, this guy's a jerk. Like, seriously. See, this is why I say, like, high school relationships, like, some boys are just really, really immature. Clearly, this one is really immature, and he didn't appreciate what he had the entire time. And because that's the case, like, move on, go be amazing without him, because clearly you are so much better than him. And, like, that's all I have to say. Like, cheaters suck, and it sucks that there even are cheaters in this world. But the good news is that you're amazing, and he's going to be so mad at himself when he finds out that he, like, let you go and you're, like, thriving and doing amazing, and he's a loser somewhere else. Like, what he did was definitely loser behavior, and just know that you're so much better than him. Yay. We love that. Okay. Last story. In middle school in the 2000s, I could tell that the teacher kept track of which girls had a boyfriend in class. She knew they were prone to distraction, and she often called on them. A few of them ended up writing for the school newspaper, where she was the advisor. I thought boys were okay, although I much preferred hanging out with my friends, rollerblading, and discussing our favorite TV show, which was the OC at the time. Oh my gosh, same. But I felt that finding a boyfriend in my class was the only clear way to increase my social status, academic engagement, and perceived maturity level. Long story short, my first relationship was just a charade for my English teacher. Am I totally weird, or is that how things sometimes turn out in the confused minds of 13-year-olds? Okay, first of all, can I just say you are, like, so ahead of your time. You were so ahead of your time by literally, like, such a critical thinker you were. I mean, the fact that you picked up on the fact that your teacher gave more attention to students who seemed to be more prone to distraction, and so you wanted more attention from your teacher. You wanted those perks of and, you know, more academic engagement. That is, like, so smart of you and so well executed. I am so impressed. I didn't know that, like, students paid attention that much to, especially, like, 13-year-olds paid that much attention and, like, came up with such elaborate plans to increase their, like, academic level of greatness. So I'm just all around so impressed with with you when you were 13, because that is so smart. And yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard of a 13-year-old, like, dating someone for that specific reason. I think that is so smart. And to answer your question about, like, do teachers pay attention to kids who date? Yes, I definitely know, like, who's dating who, but I don't know, like, I don't treat anybody differently because of it, aside from, like putting their assigned seats away from each other. Like, I don't treat anybody differently due to who they're dating or if they're dating anybody. But yeah, so that's crazy. So smart, like literally genius. What are you up to these days? Like, are you a genius in some genius career? Please let me know. Let's move on to the final segment of today's episode, which is questions and advice for our listeners. So I have 4 questions that have been sent in. I picked these 4 questions. The first one, how do you get a guy to ask you out? / is it okay for a girl to ask a guy out? Okay, so I am not probably the best person to ask for this question to, because not a lot of people were knocking on my door asking me out to be their girlfriend growing up. But I think something I've learned as I've gotten older is like being really confident in yourself. Like, just be you, be confident. That confidence is going to shine through and it's going to make somebody want to be with you. And I think growing up, I wasn't like super confident, not outwardly. And so I think it came off a lot of times as like that I was being rude, maybe sometimes I was a little shy, and sometimes that can be off-putting for people who I had a crush on. And so definitely just being confident, being talkative, like just don't be afraid to be yourself, because when you're yourself, someone's going to want to be with you. Is it okay to ask a guy out? I think, yeah, definitely. If you really like somebody and you know that maybe they're really shy, then definitely go ask them out. I mean, what's the worst thing they could say? The worst thing they could say is no. So you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if you like somebody, yeah, go up to them and say hi. A lot of times guys like when girls come up to them and, make the first move. So there's definitely nothing wrong with doing that, I don't think. Because literally the worst thing they could say is no. The best thing they could say is yes. So I don't see anything wrong with doing that. Number 2, this one's more for like adults, but should finances be kept separate when 2 people are married? So I don't think so. No, I think when you're married, like you become a unit, and yeah, you might both have like different jobs, but you live together, you have a life together, you probably have kids together one day, maybe, if you choose. And so like, I think you're like, the money you make is both of your money. And that's how I view it with Zach and I. Like, we both make our own money, but it's like both of our money. Like, we're together. We're a unit. We become one when we're married. So I don't think they need to be kept separate unless there's like extenuating circumstances. Like, I mean, I don't really know much about like prenups, but like if one person in the relationship comes in with like a lot of money, maybe you sign a prenup. But just so that both people, in case of separation, like are safe, and the finances are safe. But for the most part, no, I think it should be like your finances should be together. So combined. Number 3, can I give long distance tips? Unfortunately, I've never done a long distance relationship, so I don't have a ton of tips other than just communication and making time to go see each other. I have a couple friends who did long distance for a whole year. They were lucky enough that they only had like a 4-hour drive, but they would see each other. Actually, I have another friend who did long distance for the past like 8 months as well. And I think it's just really important to always have like the next time you're going to see each other planned out, and try to see each other, like once or twice a month, I would think. I think it'd be really, really hard to be in a long distance relationship. And I think unless it's like necessary, like try to avoid it. Because just knowing being in a relationship at all, like you need to make time for the other person. And when you're in a long distance relationship, that's really hard to do. So communicating, talking every day, trusting each other and making plans to see each other, I think are the three tips I have for long distance. But I've never been through it, so I can't really speak too much more on it. And the last question is how to maintain a healthy relationship and good communication. So this is something that I feel Zach and I do really, really well. The moment that I went on my first date with Zach, I immediately was at ease. So I was always a very anxious person, and like the moment we started dating, I could just feel myself let go and like start to relax. And it's because I felt so safe with him. He has always done such a good job of just reassuring me because he knows that's what I need. And we obviously communicate really well. When something is bothering us, we don't just let it bother us. We talk to the other person and we talk it out. So there's never time for anybody to get like angry about anything, because if we're ever feeling insecure or like there's some sort of problem, we talk it out as soon as we can. And I think that's just the biggest thing, is like really establishing good communication and like open lines of communication. Make sure you and your partner know that nothing is off limits. Like talk to each other about everything. Because the better your communication, the better your relationship will be. And that is how you can kind of have a healthy relationship. So this kind of brings me into something that I did want to talk about, like, and I've gotten some questions about it, like, how do you know if he's the one, or if that the person you are dating, if they are the one? And I definitely know how to tell if they are not the one, because I've definitely been through that before. I've had a lot of situationships where I feel like I was constantly trying so hard to make a relationship out of something that just wasn't there. And it was, looking back, like it's so clear that those dudes did not like me. And I just kept trying and trying to make them like me. And they just did things to show me that they didn't. I would be waiting for their text messages every day. I would be hoping that they would call me to want to hang out. I'd be hoping that they still liked me. And I was constantly worrying about it. And when I met Zach, literally all my worries, all my relationship anxieties melted away. I felt this like calmness that I've never felt in a relationship before. In all of those past relationships, I was so anxious the whole time. And it was almost like it was my body telling me that it wasn't a right fit. And when I met Zach, I had this calmness that I had not felt in years, seriously. And I think that's how I knew this was going to be a healthy relationship. That's how I knew. I knew very, very quickly into our first few dates that I would eventually want to marry him. And I knew that I loved him when he met my family. He makes me feel so safe, so seen without even trying. He just inherently knows to do those things. And he doesn't get frustrated with me. I don't get frustrated with him, because we have effective communication. We talk things out and we say what's on our mind. And I think you can really tell if someone is the one if you're feeling those feelings. You kind of have just like a gut feeling, and it's almost like there's no doubt to it. It's not even a question when you feel the feeling. And it's like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for. Like, you just know. And when you can picture yourself with them in a house, with kids, with a dog, I think that's another sign as well. If you can't picture a future with them, you might want to rethink your relationship. But if you can picture those things, they might be the one. And sometimes you haven't been dating long enough to know. There's no reason to ever rush a relationship either. And one thing I always grew up thinking based off of TV shows, TV shows and such, is that relationships are really hard. What I've learned is they're supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be hard. And of course, life will throw difficult things at you. And you may go through things that are difficult together. But the relationship itself shouldn't be hard. Your love should just feel so natural and so easy. And that's what I've learned since dating Zach. And because, like I said, I was single until I was 24, and I never knew these things. And so I've learned so much in the past 3 years about myself, about relationships, about what a healthy relationship looks like, about what good communication looks like. And I just feel so lucky. And I love Zach so much. So enough of that sappy stuff. But yeah, I think the main thing about relationships is, get to know yourself, be independent, love yourself. When you love yourself, then you can love someone else. And do not let anybody treat you wrong. Stand up for yourself. When someone's treating you wrong, especially if it's like early on in a relationship, do you really want to live with that for the rest of your life? Probably not. So wait for the person that's going to treat you the way you deserve to be treated. And you deserve to be treated amazingly, with respect, with love, with tenderness. You deserve all of those things. And so if you are, no matter how old you are, whether you're 14, 15, 16, 17, or in your early 20s, just know that the right person is going to come along. Be patient. It will happen. I know this sounds so cliche, but it really will. I, for so long, thought that I was unlovable. I, for so long, thought I was never going to find anybody. And then I found Zach. And so sometimes it happens in a way that you won't expect it. Sometimes it'll take longer than you think. Sometimes it'll take shorter than you think to find someone. But relationships are really fun too. Like, they're supposed to be fun. You get to have a best friend and a lover like all at once, and it's such a fun thing to find your person. But please, please, please don't let them treat you badly, because that's not worth it. And I think that's all I have to say today. I don't even know how long we've been recording. It's been a long time, but I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. And I can't believe I have to go back to work next week. Oh my goodness. But I am excited for the school year. I can't wait for school to start. And please don't forget to give this podcast a review on Spotify if you are a Spotify listener. Love you all so much. Don't forget to follow my Instagram pages, Spill the Ranch and Noelle of Sloths, so that you don't miss out on anything in my life or things related to the podcast. Thank you to everyone who sent in stories and questions for today's episode. Appreciate you all so much. Have a saucy rest of your week, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.